Hi, it's Lilly, back with another video, and this one is going to be the psychological reasons why people rape and sexually assault other people. And the reasons are varied across the board. People have many different reasons for why, and so I wanted to go over those in this video. And I think it's important to do so because I think when you realize where these issues stem from and why people do what they do, it can help you understand more what we need to do to fix these problems. He's so funny. Reasons are varied. One of the reasons is it's a power dynamic and it's power over people. And when you have that kind of power over someone, it's like a really gratifying thing to some people. Sometimes people who feel weak in other areas of their lives will then try to take power in other ways, and that's one of the ways that this could manifest. Another reason why is people who were abused themselves are more likely to perpetuate the cycles of abuse. It's not always. Some people are abused and they decide that they don't want to be like that and they want to do better. And then some people end up perpetuating the cycle. Because that is all, like if someone was raised with an abusive family, parents, that's all they know. And when that is how you're brought up in the world, with that culture, that's how you see the world, and that's your expectation for other people. So if you learned growing up that abusing your family, abusing people you love is how it works, then you're more likely to do that with other people. You're more likely to carry on those traits. Not always. So what does that tell us? It tells us that people who experience these kinds of things as involved in their childhood, they need to deal with those issues or they will carry them on for other people. And so how can we prevent it, looking at it from that perspective? And so preventing this talks about, which a lot of actually problems in sociology, a lot of social problems can be fixed if you start from the beginning. So if a child has a healthy home, enough to eat, enough resources, time to do homework, a good, productive, safe childhood, that increases the chances that they will be supportive of healthy relationships, that they'll be able to facilitate healthy relationships. When there are problems at home, it is breeding ground for creating other kinds of abusive situations and other kinds of issues like that. If people have experienced or have had a traumatic childhood, it's important that they get help to deal with those issues so that they don't perpetuate those cycles of abuse. And it can be very difficult to dive deep and really reflect and understand where your problems come from. But that's a very important part to ending those cycles of abuse. The next reason is that people don't think that they're going to get caught. And this is another reason for why long-term punishments don't exactly work. And this is the same kind of idea behind people who murder other people as well. Is that it's not like someone is in the moment and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna kill someone. And then it's like, well, actually, if I kill someone and get caught, I'm going to get a long prison sentence. So maybe I shouldn't do it. It doesn't work that way. People don't think about the consequences when they do things like this. They don't care. They don't think they're going to get caught. They don't think they're going to get reported. And unfortunately, there are actually a lot of people who do not report. And so they just feel like they're not going to get caught. Some people who rape or sexually assault other people are kind of antisocial, and so they don't really care how society views them. They don't care about the punishment. They don't care if people condemn them. They don't care. These can be, when we're talking in the perspective of men, these can be men that have been already rejected in society. So they might be they might be people that have struggled with relationships in the past, and so as a reason behind they almost like have a hatred for women, and so they'll rape people, they'll assault them, and they won't care. And it's this resentment of never having an intimate connection like that. They force themselves upon people. They want to get back at them, and they want to have that kind of power, so they take it. And what's really disturbing is a lot of men feel that unconsensual sex and rape is not the same thing. Like, they will say, well, yeah, like, she was wasted and everything, but I didn't rape her. Yeah, she was this, but, I didn't rape her. And it's this cognitive dissonance that it's like, that is the definition, but they don't see it that way. So they don't think they're really doing anything wrong, but no one thinks they're the bad guy. They have less empathy for what they're doing. So the next reason why was a little disturbing, but it makes sense. It's just something I personally hadn't really connected the dots until I was doing this research. But some men are really aggressive, and some men hate women. Men are misogynistic. Some men, not all of them, are misogynistic, and they hate women. And so it's like a way of getting back at them. It's like a way of punishing them. They feel entitled to sex, or for example, a woman will do something a man doesn't like, and he will rape her as like a punishment. This happens a lot in abusive relationships. The cause of this can be bad experiences with women from their past, including their childhood, including their mother, which was one of the points here that I thought was very important to think about, is that people with mommy issues, or men with mommy issues who hate their mother, or who have this negative perception of women from their mother, will carry on this hatred. If they had a poor relationship with their mother, or they hated their mother, they will carry on that connection with other women they meet, and they will have this negative perception of women as they go through their life because they had a terrible mother, or they view that they had a terrible mother or an abusive mother. I think that was a very interesting point. And I think that highlights again why it's important to reflect on the trauma that you've experienced throughout your life and as a child, and work on fixing that so you do not hurt other people. Sometimes they use sex as or rape, I should say, as a weapon to humiliate. That's called anger rape, and that is what a lot of women are fearful of, and that's why so many women who are in that situation, and who are in a situation where they don't want to have sex with someone, they won't fight back, or they won't try that hard because they are scared in that moment. In that case with a man and a woman, the man is really aggressive, and a man is more likely to, when a man is really misogynistic like that and you're in that situation, they're more likely to use physical violence to do whatever they want, really. The Vietnam War was a really gruesome war, if you've read anything about it. People were cutting off body parts of the dead people, like there was a complete disrespect of the dead, and this was on both sides, the Vietnam and the United States sides. Both were being really gross with bodies. It was just a really, really gross, really weird, in my opinion, considering that this was not that long ago, how weird it was, honestly. And, there's a lot of people that say, like, oh, you don't know war unless you've been there, and it's, like, a different culture, and I will agree, it does bring out the worst in people, and it is really traumatic. One thing that is not really spoken about in the Vietnam War is they raped other women that were there. There are reports on both sides that the soldiers raped other people. The United States raped civilians there, that the Vietnam soldiers raped, women there. But this is another thing that the United States likes to leave out of the history books. And if you haven't noticed, the United States likes to pretend that they have always been the good guy. And, even the way they have written history books is trying to make the United States look better than it actually was, or completely lie about what happened. And I think those things are being highlighted right now and called out within society. Like I said, there are tens of thousands of books out there, but very few, if not none of them, talk about the violence and the sexual assault that went on against the Vietnamese civilians. And this, when I read this, it really got me thinking. Obviously, you know, that was some time ago. I would hope that the United States military nowadays does not act like that anymore. However, when you read how prevalent sexual assault and rape is in the U.S. military just within, it really makes you think what exactly is going on there, you know, when they are overseas somewhere, when they're in the middle of war. And I'm not saying that they are not, because I've never been there. I don't know what it's like. There have been people that go there and, you know, it's nothing like that. How honest is everyone truly being about it? And this led me to a case that was very disturbing in the history of the United States military. And I'm going to read you a paragraph about what happened in this situation. And so I'll do that now. Okay, so the worst record case of this happening in the military was from March 2006, when a group of 5 soldiers stationed at a checkpoint raped the girl Abir Qassam al-Janabi, and then they burned her body to hide the evidence. They killed her father, her mother, and her 6-year-old sister. The soldiers had drinking whiskey and played cards while plotting the attack on the family. And Private Green and another soldier, Sergeant Paul Cortez, had taken turns raping the girl. He said Private Green had shot her and her family. The killings have been the most inflammatory of series of war crimes that have tarnished the reputation of U.S. and British forces. Obviously, this is not something we hear about every day. I don't think this is a daily occurrence, but I was very surprised to see this case. I was, but I wasn't. I don't think this is common, but I don't think this is unheard of. Especially because it's definitely not as regulated when you are employed somewhere. You're not regulated at all times. People aren't micromanaging what you do. There are times you and your friends are alone. And like I said before, there's so many rape and sexual assault cases that happen within the own military. And those are with people who have people to report that to. If you are a civilian of a foreign country and you get raped by a soldier that is your enemy, what are you going to do? Who are you going to complain to? Nobody. We don't really know how much of this has gone on. And I'm not saying that it is a major issue. I'm just saying it's something to think about, because the United States has a history of hiding things. And it just makes me wonder, if this happened, how many times has this happened, and how many times is it swept under the rug? How many times did people in charge partake in these kinds of things? Because it's not just privates, it's not just people that are low ranking. A female soldier in the military is more likely to be raped by a fellow soldier than to be killed by enemy fire. It's estimated that over 500,000 people since World War II, men and women, have been sexually assaulted or raped within the military. And often they are threatened or retaliated against if they try to tell someone. And that's why it's such a big issue, is if you do report it, you're going to get even more harassed or worse. There is a case that just came to me, and it was a case in Texas where a woman went missing, and there were all these allegations against Fort Hood, I believe it was. And there's just so many bad allegations about Fort Hood, and it's just like, this is a problem. And this is the U.S. military. These are people who are supposed to be protecting us. And men on men, male on male rapes are definitely reported a lot less because of the stigma, because of the retaliation, and because of the manipulation behind it. Veterans go through a lot of different things, and sometimes if that kind of thing happens between soldiers, it's just another thing that they want to leave behind. they don't want to talk about. They already have psychological issues from the things they were dealing with. And, you know, a lot of them are going to take things like that to the grave. Because why relive it? Why press charges? Why do all that? There's so much shame associated with that. Some men who assault people will blame it on their hormones and make it seem like they don't have any self-control. And I think that is a psychological issue. There are psychological issues relating to sexual dysfunction like that. And it's also very narcissistic tendencies where you are completely lacking empathy for another person enough to be using them, to be abusing them, to be taking advantage of them like that. Another reason for the psychological reason why men will rape women is because they view them as objects. They view them as people specifically for their pleasure. They don't view them as a person with human emotions that should be respected as so. Especially prostitutes. And there are a lot of people in society who feel like prostitutes can't be raped or things like that. Or if a woman has sex with a lot of men, that she can't be raped. And I have heard this again, unfortunately, with my peers, that if a woman has sex with a lot of people, that she can't be raped. It's such a disturbing thought. And what's even more disturbing is that men don't see an issue with this kind of thinking. And they genuinely believe what they're saying. It's very weird to me. Just do some critical thinking. But they don't want to. Another point is that men behave this way because of their distance from city life. If you've heard this before, you know, you've probably heard the stereotypes of like in the South, people are more likely to like fuck their cousin or something, or people are more likely to do incest. They're more likely to do questionable things like that. And I have noticed this too. The more people are isolated from other people, the more farther away from cities, the more they do sketchy shit. Whether it's being racist, whether it's being homophobic, whether it's incest, they are less tolerant of other people. It is a fact that when you live around more people, when you have a closer proximity to people, you have more of a tolerance for differences, for variety. If you live in New York City, you are probably going to be more socially more socially accepting of other races, of diversity, of gay people, of many different cultures, because you are exposed to it, you are surrounded by it. But if you are in the middle of Kansas, where there's nothing going on, you know, there's no black people, there's no gay people, I don't want to say none, but it's frowned upon, you'll be condemned kind of thing, or the Bible Belt, where they're very, you know, hateful towards those differences in people. There are more reports of family molestation, racism, sexism, and abuse in more rural areas in the United States. And that's not a coincidence. When people are isolated, they tend to do more weird shit because there's no one around to say, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. So people need to get out more. And when you live in a rural area, typically the people around you all kind of agree with your lifestyle, or they all kind of have the same values. You know, a lot of people in the country are racist. So when you don't have people around you to challenge those ideals, you just keep having them, and then you teach them to your children, and then they grow up to be the same way. Maybe, probably, really. You know, if that's how you're taught, you're going to regurgitate that information. Another reason for why people will abuse others like this is drug and alcohol abuse. A lot of times when people are abusing drugs or alcohol, they tend to be more aggressive, more violent, they're less empathetic, and they are more likely to do these kinds of things. So I think it's important that if someone has those kinds of issues, it's important to try and get them help, or to try and get yourself into a safer or better situation so that you don't end up abused by them. And another reason is that people learn from behavior. So, for example, if a child grows up in an environment with an abusive household, we talked about this a little bit earlier, they are more likely to mimic those actions. So, if a son sees his father hitting his mother, abusing her, being disrespectful, he may then take that and treat other people like that. And people who have those tendencies to rape or sexually assault other people, or who do that kind of thing, they typically start earlier in life with those kinds of behaviors. And you can see them a little bit in how people treat, other women, how men treat other women, for example. You see that. You see the misogynistic mentality kind of thing. I don't think it's really common for men to go, 30, 40 years of their life respecting women and then one day decide, I'm going to rape them. It's something that is learned when you are younger. So that concludes this video. I would like to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.